But I want to thank everyone for coming out today. I'm mostly going to answer questions, but I guess I'll kind of go through the various departments. And first, I guess I will, show you the Village Hall. We've done some significant remodeling for those. How many of you have been in here before? You could probably remember the Secretary of State being in here, which was not a really good use of our space, given that this is our boardroom and where we do a lot of other things. So what we've done is we've put places for staff here on the sides, as well as we did not meet ADA requirements to get in and out, and we do now, so all of these things are ADA, including our board floor was not ADA accessible, so now it is. So we did all of that. There's still some sound stuff that's going in the back so we don't get an echo, because this was not exactly built for functionality when it was built in '89. So we did all that, redid this. It was kind of a long time coming. When I got here, the chairs we were using were still from 1989, so including up here. And then new audio and video, because as some of you may know, when I got here in 2017, there was no audio, no video of any of our board meetings at all. So they weren't broadcast or anything. So in 2019, when we got 3 new trustees, we approved video broadcast, live video broadcast, and then we also recorded it, put it on the website and everything else so people could see it. The other thing, it saves us a lot of time when we do our minutes. Instead of having to do minutes on everything, they can basically say refer to the audio and video. And so, they have links to all of those different things. So it does save us some time. But also, obviously, the biggest thing is it's transparency. But we had someone that we were paying every week to come in here and tape it because it was much better done that way. Poor Nabia started off trying to do it via her phone. And obviously, that wasn't a good solution. So now we have all of that. And all of this up here used to be a balcony. Now it's where all of our audio and video is stored. There was also a lot of security upgrades made as well, like that was open. So it was fairly open for people. And while we don't want to think about those things, we do have to think about those things because there's not much of a place for the board to exit. I added a couple of doors. For those of you who might remember that door used to be over here, was a double door into the executive room. And then that goes into finance. So now, if God forbid something ever happened, people can get into more secure areas if we needed to. So, you never want to think that could happen, but if it ever did. So that's why we made all those changes. For those of you afterwards, if you want to take a look at, we also expanded the conference room. And if you go back there and look, I'll show you what it was. And I can tell you the last meeting we had back there, every seat was filled, what we currently have. And if you'd imagine putting all of that in about half the size. But what we had back there was really this big open, I don't even know what you'd call it, this open meeting, the open area that no one ever used. And so we basically expanded the room out for that and gave us more audio, video, and current electronics so that we can bring people in on Zoom and those types of things. And as you can see too, anyone who's been here before knows well that it was very difficult when we broadcast anything to the public. We did any presentations because it was a projector and a screen. And so everybody's turning their heads around. Now everything is projected through these things. So no matter where you're sitting, the board can see it. Looking up there, everybody can see it here. So, and then we also have a podium that comes in here. So normally this is configured differently. So this is the other nice thing is we can configure the room differently so we can use it for different things where we really couldn't do that before. So I'll just kind of quickly go department by department, and then I'll open it up to the questions that you have. So I showed you here from the IT, just something that, IT and communications, but also IT. When I arrived here in 2017, they had just hired their first IT director about, I think, 6 months prior. Literally, our technology was so antiquated, I can't even tell you. And I basically, even though we're in a position then we were trying to cut some costs, I told them, hey, whatever you can do in a year, you tell us, we're going to do it. And we've pretty much been following that approach since I've been here. We're almost to the point where we want to be, and we have a new ERP system that's about 70%, maybe 50% put in. So we've gotten a long way with our technology, which helps us be a lot more efficient, helps us track our records, all of that. Let's see. Engineering is no longer in development services. It's now in its own department, and that's been very beneficial. Our person that's leading that has done a great job. And engineering, we do a lot of engineering for projects because there's funding out there often for projects, but a lot of towns aren't ready to do the project. So this funding, they always say, you've always heard they want shovel ready. Well, shovel ready means you have to have the engineering done. Well, a lot of towns can't afford to do the engineering. We can, so we get a lot of this engineering done ahead of time. Often if the funding comes, sometimes it'll pay for the engineering too, and we do some of that. But the nice thing about that is it allows us to get funding sources. And so if you think about the engineering department, I think we have 4 people working in there. Well, I think it was, 5 years prior, we just did a presentation on this. We had gotten about, I think it was $2 million in grants over 5 years. Since that engineering department's put in, we've gotten $25 million in grants by doing that. So it's paid for itself by being prepared for those things. So like, for example, we're doing some bike paths and things like that. Because we have them already engineered, we're getting money because they're ready to go. And other towns, just frankly, they can't afford to do that. So it allows us to find funding sources elsewhere. Because a lot of times there's an 80-20 match. So we have to put in 20% for a road project or a bike path project, and a lot of towns, like I say, can't do that, and we fortunately can. So we should take advantage of that whenever we can, because we can find other funding sources. And your taxes go to these other places, and anything we can get back is at least bringing money back to the community from where the money comes from. Our comms director, Nabia here, who's helping put all this on. So they do a lot of great work, and Vince over here with the camera. So, because we try and put these things on the website, I know that oftentimes only like 100 people will view a board meeting, but every board meeting is broadcast. So there's no, people will say, oh, you're not telling us what's going on. It's here. You just have to, I mean, we can give it to you, we can't make you read it, we can't make you watch it. I understand, believe me, I'm there. They're not necessarily exciting meetings. Certainly not as exciting as the first 2 years when there was all the animosity, but we get a lot done. And so you can see a lot of the proposals, a lot of things that happen at our planning commission meetings, all of those things. So we've tried to be as transparent as possible. So all of that, and that's why the comms is so important, is that we get all that stuff out to you, because in 2017, like I said, none of this stuff was broadcast before. Now it's all out there for you, so you can see it all. Then if you look, so the village manager's office is up in here as well, and they do, obviously they run, oversee the whole village. Then our other departments, you got behind us here, you have the rec department, so our recreation department. They handle all of our parks, all of our programming, all of our scheduling of all our fields, so all of that gets done through them. So obviously, for those of you who live in Orland Park, we do a lot. They are probably maxed almost to the limit as far as what they can do, from their own. Otherwise, we'll just burn them all out, because they're so busy. You think of the Taste of Orland, the Market on the Park, the concert series. We have the Easter egg hunt coming up. The Cinderella's Ball. I mean, there's just event after event after event. So they're the ones that do all of those events. And that's really important. What's different from them, from a lot of places, a lot of places have park districts. A park district is a separate taxing body on your property tax. Orland Park does not have a park district. The Parks Department is part of the village. So for example, Tinley Park, if you added up Tinley Park's taxes plus their park district taxes, it's over 3 times, and stripped out their fire part of it, it's over 3 times, closer to 4 times what Orland Park's taxes are. So we run our entire recreation department. We don't have a separate taxing body that just keeps raising your taxes on all of that. The policy of the board has been, since it was for at least, I think, 30 years, that 52% of the Parks and Recreation Department is subsidized by the property taxes, and the rest of it is user fees. So, we obviously get a lot of revenue from user fees and that type of thing. So some of our events, we actually break even or maybe make a few bucks. Some of them, we're supporting. But at the end of the day, we're trying to support all of, so that you're getting something back. And that's where that's one of the things you really see, obviously, is the parks. We have 66 of them. So we have a park for about every 900 residents. The average in the US is one for every 4,000 residents. So, and since 2019, we've been able to fix 26, after this year, 26 of our neighborhood parks will have had major renovations. And then you also had John Humphrey Complex right over here, was completely redone. And this year, Schuessler Park and Centennial Park West will have major projects there at all. So we've put a lot of money into our parks because, again, that's something that you see every day. You don't see it. You don't see finance. And you notice I didn't talk much about finance department. Very important department, but it's not something you see much except for your water bill. And but you do see your parks. Public Works, also very important. Snow plowing. They handle the snow. All of our snow plowing, they do a great job of that. They always have. I used to be a contractor for them way back when in 03 with my company, 03 till I became mayor. So I'm very familiar with the snow, our snow fighting, but also roads. And when I arrived here, we had our roads were evaluated. There about 40% of them were in poor condition. We were underinvesting in our roads. So we doubled the investment in 2019 when the new board came on. And over 5 years, we got that from 40% down to 17%. And now, in the next 5 years, we're planning on that to be under 5%. And our road condition, we rate all of our roads. Every single road gets rated. I hear it from both sides of town. The east side of town, we don't make as much money, so you don't spend money on us. The west side of town, we pay more in taxes, and you don't spend money on us. And so we hear all of that. At the end of the day, we rate all of our roads, and we look at all of our roads and say which ones are in the worst condition, and those are the ones we repair first, with some exceptions. Sometimes roads are in such bad shape they have to be completely rebuilt, and we would have to, if we did that with every road that needs to be completely, and some were built so long ago that they have to be built to a whole new standard. So a 2-inch asphalt overlay, which is what we normally do, wouldn't fix the problem. So they have to be completely rebuilt. Well, if we rebuilt them all at once, then a bunch of those roads that could be redone with 2-inch overlays would then have to be rebuilt as well. So we try and balance that. So what you've seen with that is like Fernway was done over multiple years, and we pushed that up, so that'll be complete this year. Laguna Woods, Orland Hills subdivision. Those subdivisions were 1960s subdivisions, annexed from Cook County, a little different road standard. So the ditches need to be redone and all that, so they're a lot more expensive, so we've broken those up. But overall, that's what we try and do with it. We try and basically take and handle the roads that are in the poorest conditions. Same thing with our parks. I'll get to questions in just a minute. Yeah, so that's basically what we have going on, and across our various departments. And now I'll open it up to questions. So she's got a mic for you.
I know money's important, but you know what's more important? Your planning, your gathering of people. You know what I mean? You sit alone, you think of silly things, and it's that getting people together. That's more important than the dollar.
So I agree with you. That's why we spend so much time with our Parks and Recreation Department and all the events that we have. That's why we invest so heavily in that, is because people, at the end of the day, you pay a lot of property taxes, not really much to Orland Park. We're like 6% of your property tax bill. But people pay sales tax. There's all kinds of different taxes you pay. Well, we want to make sure you're getting something in return for that. What are you getting in return? You're getting the recreation opportunities that you have here. We have to make sure our roads are in good shape so people can get to our businesses. There's nothing worse. I'm sure you've been 10 miles east and northeast of here and seen roads that are just in horrible conditions. And we do everything we can to keep that up. But you can't get it all at one time. Because if you fixed it all at one time, you say you borrowed money to fix it all at one time, well, in 20 years, they're going to have the same problem. They're going to have to fix it all at one time. So we're trying to get caught up on what we were behind, and we were behind a lot. We're trying to get caught up on all that by evaluating things, fixing what's worse, having a plan, and then gradually, we've seen that with the roads. We went from less than $4 million in spending when I got here, and I was blocked from spending any more. We doubled that almost immediately to $8 million in 2019. We did that for 4 years. We brought our road conditions from a rating of 47 out of 100 to 59 out of 100. 70 is considered like top of the line. That's the goal we're going to be at next. After 5 years, we think we're going to be there. But we were able to cut the spending back from $8 million to $6 million and get there in 5 years because we've made so much progress. So we've done the same thing with parks. So planning is really important for all of that, to try and get the dollars, and also so that we have a plan for the next 20 years so we don't get caught with this big pile of projects, which we have right now, frankly. We're in strategic planning right now. We have $100 million worth of projects that over and above what we know we can fund, that many of them, most of them need to be done. So we have to figure out how we're going to fund that, and so that's one of the challenges we have. Other questions? I know you had a question about, I think about Orland Ridge. You don't have to stand up. Just grab the mic.
I wanted to ask you about the projects at 94th Avenue and 171st Street, where the hospital is being built, and those buildings are my main concern.
Okay. So that project, Orland Ridge is what it's called. It's so if you think of that area, it's basically from just to the south of the Wendy's down LaGrange to 94th Avenue. That was the parcel. Okay, so LaGrange and 94th Avenue, south of the Wendy's to 171st. That's Orland Park. On the other side, north of that's Orland Hills. South of that's Tinley Park. It's just one little area. My understanding is the reason we have that area is that in the past, former Mayor Owens, and I may have this wrong, but this is what I've heard, is that he swapped the parcel that Walmart is currently on with Orland Hills for that parcel, and basically allowed them to have Walmart. And he did so because what I was told he said was that it's no good to live next door to a dirt poor neighbor. So he made sure that they had something there that they could generate some tax revenue. So if you think of that little area there, there's no way anyone's ever building single family homes there. It's just too much traffic between 94th and LaGrange and all of that. And so when I arrived, there was already a project in the works that Orland Ridge was there, although it got finally approved while I was on the board, while I was the mayor. It was already in the works. And the project was basically rental villas and townhomes targeted to 55 plus. So that's why you see a clubhouse there. It's basically targeted for the 55 plus community. Rents were targeted at I think 3,000 plus on average, but I think the lowest ones that I've seen over there I think are 2,500. I personally don't get renting for that much, but apparently there's a market because they have a waiting list over there for it. If you think about Orland Park as a whole, and somebody wanting to bring that project in, relative to where all of our single family is, that actually is a pretty logical place to put it, because it's not buried within our single family. It's mostly in a commercial corridor, so you're not seeing a lot of of that product like in the middle of the subdivisions and homes and that kind of thing. So, and believe it or not, there's lots of projects all the time where they want to bring rentals into the market. So, and the front part of that project was commercial. And you're seeing Silver Cross is taking, and they're building 46,000 square foot building to be beautiful. They have planned to add another 46,000 square feet. And then just to the south of the Wendy's, there's a hotel approved there. Now, no one has approached us yet for the hotel, because when this was originally done, it was hotel and retail and restaurants and that. And as it turned out, it's medical office, which is okay. But the medical office is actually going there largely because of the over 55 population that's going to be right next to it. So. It's actually it's a good project. It's a little bit different, but if you think about where it's going to fit in overall Orland Park, it's a good location for it because it's kind of isolated. It's between Tinley and Orland Hills, so.
Good morning. Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
Commend you on what a phenomenal job you've been doing, and
Thank you.
Thank you for transparency,
Thank
which
you.
is lacking around the world in this country. Anyway, building on the build-to-rent sort of question, a lot of folks I see on some of the public social media things, a lot of negative reviews or thoughts, comments on what's going on in Orland Hills, thinking it's Section 8 and all that. I mean, it's, as you said, it's $3,000 rents. And
Right.
there are a lot of the community, myself included, that's a renter by choice. And
Right.
for a lot of reasons. And
Right.
was wondering and curious if you have an opinion on sort of those master plan communities for future development somewhere in Orland Park. Obviously, it has to be in the right spot, but
So, so there's a couple of things there. So one, as far as the renters, yeah, the rental market has picked up dramatically. The people wanting to rent, particularly here in Illinois, which in some ways I understand because they're like, hey, maybe they sold their house and they only got a few more years here, and maybe they're unsure if they're going to stay here, those types of things. I think you have to strike a balance, because I can tell you right now, with all the projects we see, we could fill up Orland Park with rentals, and nobody wants to do that. So our philosophy is, because we added, Orland Ridge, we added, and by the way, none of these things are publicly, that's not publicly funded. So, and what people don't understand about vouchers is that we can't, actually even any house, any house, any place, anybody can rent. We can't control if somebody owns a house if they want to rent their house or whatever. We do have rules in place that they have to let us know that they're renting, so we inspect and those types of things to make sure that things stay in good shape. But when it comes to things like vouchers, it's a protected class in Cook County. So prospective landlords can't even ask people about source of income. They have to just accept it. So it's something that we certainly can't control, nobody can control. But the big thing we can do is not publicly fund those units or take money from the federal government for those units, which we do not. So, but our philosophy as a board, generally speaking, with regards to the master plan communities and those types of things, is our density. So we have density rules, and when it comes to rentals in particular, or condos or townhomes or any of those, is our general rule is that we're not exceeding the density that they're allowed to build by right. So we're not allowing people, we're not basically expanding their right to a lot more density just because they come here with a plan, because we see plans all the time with a lot of density, right? And so by density, I mean the number of people per acre, okay? Number of units per acre. So, so we're careful about that. With the master plan communities, also we're going to be careful about that as it comes in, because one of the problems with master plan communities, and one of the reasons why they tend to walk away from here, is because we have a brick requirement on our homes, and they want to build homes as cheaply as possible. So you're not going to see homes like Plainfield's a nice community, but it's a way different home product than what you see in Orland Park as far as quality. So we're not going to allow that to happen. So a lot of them just walk away because they don't want to build with brick. And we've seen it even with some of the ones that we've had that are master planned here in the community, is that the quality of the homes is not the same as what was built before. So, so we're cognizant of that. We do have some projects that are being floated to us that are kind of those types of larger scale projects. And we look at density, and sometimes we will increase the density some, as long as we're seeing, as long as the village is getting something in return that we want to see. For example, I'll give you an example of a project it's been submitted, so it could be FOIA'd so people could see it. So if you think of 159th and LaGrange, you got a Pep Boys there. Now this may or may not happen. This has been going on for a couple of years, but there's a project that's been submitted for some commercial along LaGrange, commercial along 159th, and then behind it, some apartment buildings. Well, if you look right behind that project, there's apartment buildings already. So that's actually a pretty, kind of makes sense. You're not going to build single-family homes in that little parcel right behind commercial, right between apartments. No one's ever going to do that. So for them to make the project work, they have to basically have a little higher density. We're willing to allow that, because to have that corner built out with commercial is worth it for us. And again, it puts apartments in the right place in Orland Park. So that's the other thing, right? Probably not the right place along Will Cook, where we have all that open space. That's probably a good place for single-family home subdivisions, right? So those types of things. And one department that I didn't talk about, so I'll open back up the questions, was the police department. They do a phenomenal job. 2021, we had the lowest number of index crimes that we've had in 27 years. We've been, for the last 3 years, the lowest violent crimes per capita in the state. so number one for towns over 50,000. So our police department does a phenomenal job. Now that does not mean that we aren't under a lot of pressure and there aren't a lot of people trying to commit crimes. There are, way more than there used to be. Our police officers are very, very, very busy, but they're very busy proactively keeping you safe. The reason I bring that up is because we have a special guest here today who just showed up. If you haven't met him, he's going to be working his way around here. Hey, Leo. So Rich Miller's handles Leo, and he also is the director of our ESDA, and he's also handles our lockup and our evidence. But his job also entails Leo, who's our service dog. So, and Rich, why don't you tell him a little bit about what Leo does, and maybe even what he was doing the other day.
You do? So Leo is a 2-year-old Labrador Retriever. He comes to us from the Brevard County Sheriff, where he was trained. He's a therapy dog. So Leo's main focus is to provide comfort, care, and compassion to those that have been victimized. Not only that, but he also does a lot with our first responders, right? Those are the people, the folks in our community that see the worst every day. So Leo's at the police department with me Monday through Friday and Saturday. Where he is able to decrease a little stress in the first responders' lives. Leo spent 5 days in Highland Park after the parade shooting there last year, if you all recall. He assisted the FBI and their victim witness teams in conducting interviews with children that were at the parade. Most recently, we just attended the wake and funeral for the Chicago police officer that was killed in the line of duty. Leo spent the whole entire time at the wake with the police officer's wife. So that's a little bit about Leo. Nobody's allergic to dogs, right? I want to stay away from you if you're allergic or afraid. I assure you that Leo's the nicest dog you'll ever meet.
That is absolutely the truth.
Yeah, it is.
So Leo is great, and he does a lot of, like Rich said, he goes to all these events. He also helps around here. He helps with our, he goes to schools. He does all that kind of stuff. But here's the thing, Leo doesn't do that alone. Rich does that too. And so on top of all of those other duties, he's doing that on his own time and going to these places. So it's been a great addition, and it's a great program. And we have another dog too, Maverick. He does more of the policing. So he's also a very friendly dog, though, and he's a hound. And the reason we got a hound and not a German Shepherd, we had a German Shepherd before that, and I have a German Shepherd. I love Shepherds, and Shepherds are fantastic at tracking. They're fantastic at a lot of things. They're really smart. But one of the reasons that a lot of departments have Shepherds is because they also can assist with arrests and bite and all that other stuff. Well, what we've realized is if our dog ever bites, we immediately get sued. Every attorney in the country is with that victim wanting to take their case and sue us for biting. So we're like, what do we really use our German Shepherd for? Well, we use them for tracking, for, if an Alzheimer's, patient wanders off, or if a child wanders off, or if a criminal jumps out of a car and takes off. So we use them for tracking, we use them for drugs. We don't really use them for biting. So as good as German Shepherds are, even for tracking and everything, hounds are even better. So that's why we got the hound, because that's predominantly what. So when we got the new dog, we got one that was specifically for what we use them for all the time. And I'll tell you what, that dog's about this big, Rich? He's about this high. He's bigger than that. I think he's like 60, isn't he? That's what. But he's like this big, and I think he's like 60 pounds. My Shepherd's 60 pounds. He's 3 times his size. That dog is just solid muscle.
Yeah, and Maverick does a lot of good work here at our park.
He does a lot of good work. So, and he goes through the schools, the lockers, sniffs the lockers, all that kind of stuff. So he's just and also he's also very friendly. He's not quite as friendly. I mean, he's very friendly, but that's all Leo is friendly. That's his job. Friendly and food, as you can tell. So, Nabia, another question. And he's going to be working his way around, so feel free to pet him.
Thank you, thank you. Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Since you mentioned that I'm coming here for tennis, you know, the tennis facility, something, that's the question I want to ask. But since you mentioned the Park District has different taxes.
We don't have a park district.
Oh, you don't?
We don't. We're a parks department. So we don't have a separate taxing body like other towns. The park district runs through the village.
Okay. So maybe this is the place to ask the question.
Well, if you're asking about tennis courts in Orland, then this is the right place because we handle all of that too.
So the question is that, you know, compared to the villages or cities around us, so we don't have a place where you have a course with light in the night. So if you look at Tinley Park, they have like 2 courts, you know, and 171st, by the building, okay, you know, 171st Street and 80th Avenue, right? If you compare to, you know, Mokina, they have 4 courts.
Okay?
Okay, so with lights, if you go to Orland, the Palace Hills, right? And we have Green Valley. If you go to Palace Heights, they have.
Yeah, I get the point.
Okay. And so you go to Burridge.
Yeah, I get it.
You go to Western Spring.
I get it.
So what I mean is, where can we have something like that? Would that
Okay, so what you're asking for is can we have lights? First off, all of those places are park districts. So I will tell you the Tinley Park Park District taxes you as much in property tax as the entire village of Orland Park. So that's one of the reasons why they can do this, because they spend money hand over fist. But we can certainly look at that, and Nabia, if you can bring that to Ray and say, is there a place where we can do lighted? Because we have tons of tennis courts. And the other thing that's been a big deal for tennis courts is people wanting to play pickleball. So all of our tennis courts are also lined for pickleball, so you can do either one. But we're more than happy to take a look at that and see if there's a place where we can add lighting to a tennis court somewhere. So I don't know. I don't play tennis. I know we have a lot of tennis courts all over the place, but our recreation department can certainly take a look at that. Sandburg is not ours. Sandburg is a school. So yeah, and they're definitely not going to put lights on the court so people can go use them at night, because then they have to police it and everything else. So that's a whole nother story. But that's the school district and that's their property. So that's not village property.
Yeah. Mayor, thank you for this forum. I have a question about the industrial development. What's the village plans for industrial developments? I mean, the whole country is flourishing now. There's developments all over the place happening. The supply chain is changing, and is the village doing anything about it? Creating industrial developments that serve the community and the workers that live in the town.
So the question was about industrial development. So industrial development is, the problem is that's a very broad category. But in case if you haven't noticed with the Village of Orland Park, it's basically a bedroom community, retail, restaurants, et cetera. We've been trying to diversify our economy, but there's not a whole lot of places for industrial development in Orland Park. No one's going to want them in there amongst our subdivisions. The places we have where we can do industrial are out along Will Cook or Wolf Road, south 179th, that area in there. There we have a little bit of an area at 104th. If you're talking about transportation and logistics, and you said the whole country ain't doing, the whole country's doing well. Illinois, not so much. Not exactly a business-friendly place. So the biggest difficulty for us in attracting businesses is, frankly, it's the state of Illinois. What businesses want to come to the state of Illinois? The only sector that seems to be doing well is logistics. And logistics, particularly along I-80 corridor, which 97% of the goods in Illinois come through that corridor, 4% of the goods in the US come through that corridor. Here's the problem for us is that the I-80 corridor that we have from Wolf to LaGrange, that is not a place where we're interested at all in trucking. Neither is Mokina. We do not need a bunch of trucks beating up our roads as well as LaGrange Road. And if you think of Will County, because that's Will County already has tons and tons of logistics that make sense where they're putting it, does not make sense for us. We're very resistant to trucks and logistics, which doesn't bring a whole lot of jobs either, but it brings a lot of trucks. And now there is a potential between Wolf and, so if you think of Wolf south of 179 Southwest Highway out that area, there's a big piece of property there, and there have been people pitching stuff, whether or not they actually get it done or not, who knows? But that is a place where we would probably accept something like that, but in that case, there would have to be an interchange to the I-80 directly associated with that, so they go on and off right there, so they're not driving through town. So we think about all that. We try and draw businesses all the time. There's a huge effort to try and to broaden our economic base. And obviously, one of the things where we've been very successful is medical office. So that we've really expanded that a lot. And we also have the problem of we have all of this retail. And let's face it, there's not going to be as much retail footprint as what there used to be. And we have 12 million square feet of it. So how do we get that retail redeveloped into something else? And then everybody wants new as well. So that's a challenge. So our big push is to try and get our retail, make sure it stays in our retail corridor between 143rd and 163rd along LaGrange Road, and then also down 159th to make sure those areas stay strong. The outlying lots, we'll figure out a way to redevelop those in some way. And you're seeing some things like, 179th and Wolf, you have a pet care facility going into a retail center. You have the old Homeacres site, which was Carson's Home Goods. The last 80,000 square feet is being taken up by an indoor storage location. So things like that, which help us a lot. So, but as far as industrial, we don't have a lot of areas, but we try to just be wise about what we put there and making sure it's not a ton of trucking. What we'd really like to see is kind of last mile, where it's smaller trucks, box trucks, that's fine. And something that's more associated with their headquarters as well. And we see some of that as well. We know that there's I just saw one the other day on 159th where they have a small facility and they want to expand it to move their headquarters in there. So those types of things.
I have a couple questions, and I don't know whether you would have any information about either of these. But number one, I live 2 blocks from the Marianos, and is there any word on this upcoming merger between, was it Kroger and Albertsons, and whether that
I know
store
nothing.
may be
I know nothing about that.
eliminated?
But the
And,
village doesn't, obviously doesn't get involved in that, or we're not.
I just thought maybe,
We know nothing about it.
Okay. Well, and the next is even, it's more likely that you may not know about it.
Okay.
And that's the Metro schedule. And, I was very happy to see that the frequency of the trains during the week was increased recently. But weekend service is an issue for not only Orland Park, but for
I know a lot more about that. So I can answer the stuff about the Metro. So since I've been mayor, we're a member of some different governmental leagues, and some of those governmental leagues control transportation funding. Okay, so the Southwest Conference of Mayors is the one that we're a part of that controls our transportation funding, and it includes basically, if you think of Southwest suburbs, that's who's in it. Okay, by and large. So from Bridgeview, Alsa, Palos Heights, Palos Hills, Palos Park, us. Tinley's not in there, interestingly enough. Tinley is in the South Suburban mayors and managers, which we're also a part of, but that's not where we get our funding from. And that is Tinley Park and to the east. So you think Richton Park, Sauk Trail, Harvey, all of those are in there. And so we're part of that as well. And we stay a part of that for a number of reasons. It probably doesn't do as much for us, except it builds a lot of relationships. And I try to, back to your industrial question, when we get things that don't fit, and we get a lot of stuff that doesn't fit, I send it to them, because sometimes we're the ones with a bigger, we have more resources. So I send it to them to get to the rest of the members of the South Suburban Mayors and Managers, because a lot of those areas have old manufacturing facilities. They have old industrial facilities. A place like Matson, they've had to completely redo based on them losing retail, but they're not going to get retail back. We're going to be the retail center. So that makes sense for them to do logistics. So we try and get things to them, because we know that if there's more development and more jobs to the east of us, it helps us. It reduces our crime. It brings more shoppers to us. It does a lot of things having the communities to the east of us and northeast of us doing better. So, but to the Metra question specifically, one of the biggest issues with the Metra, so there was a project that is called the CREATE, and basically it's a combination of the city of Chicago, Cook County, the railroads, the state, and the whole idea here, the big project they had was a $1 billion project, was to add a second track through the 75th Street corridor, because that's where everything gets blocked up because it's owned by the freight yards and it's all that freight interference. Well, 2 phases of that project are done and 2 more phases are, I believe, are funded. And the first one was funded, so the state and Bruce Rauner got $170 million out of they put all their effort into just getting for that project. They got all the money from the $170 million they got went to that project. And that helped get that funded. And so that's what's helped expand those lines. So if you looked at the map, most of the other lines have 80, 90 trains a day. We have 10. The Heritage Corridor going out to Lamont has 2, okay, and no weekend service. So now you think of the Southwest Conference of Mayors, Payless, Blue Island, Payless Heights, Payless Hills, I mean, Oak Lawn, all of us, we all live it, right? Of not having the train service we should have going through that. So it has been a push for all of the mayors. We've been pushing Metra for a long time. Metra, during COVID, gave us an express train. I'm like, what good is an express train that goes out at 9:30 and comes back at 2:30? Right? It's almost like they wanted it to fail. But the good news is now we have a better express train. We have one that's an express. We have a significant expansion. Hopefully they'll go back to Saturday service. Obviously, we're also running across the problem of they've got 30% of the ridership that they used to have. So, so it's something we continue to push for out here because it will definitely impact, because it goes all the way out to New Lenox. So it's going to impact growth through the whole region. It's probably the thing that's hampering us the most is not having a really quick train service there. So we're aware of it. The whole conference is aware of it. We've been pushing it hard, which is why we got to what we got. But even, like I said, the Heritage Corridor, I mean, think about that, 2 trains a day coming and going. That's absurd, right, out to Lamont. So that's, so the whole southwest area has been neglected by Metra. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and we've been pushing hard for that.
And some of the northern suburbs as well.
Well, the northern suburbs have a lot of service. We do not. We're the only ones that you see down there in that 10 range of trains. They have far more trains than we do. I think there's one line up there that is anywhere near down where the Heritage Corridor and Southwest Service. And then they always defer to, well, the Rock Island has it. I'm like, yeah, well, the Rock Island doesn't go through our towns, right? I mean, if you're in the southern part of Orland, it's convenient, but you're not. It's not. Or, maybe if you're like 159th and 80th Avenue, it's convenient. It's not so convenient for everyone else.
Just curious to ask, is Orland ever going to have an outlet mall? I thought I heard that quite some time ago.
I would highly doubt that we would ever have an outlet mall. Again, you go back to retail, and retail across the country is contracting. They're not spending a lot of money. They're not adding. We have just about every store. We have some outlet-ish stores like Nordstrom Rack and things like that. We have some of that, but I would be highly suspicious, even if someone came to us with that idea of an outlet mall, of how that would play if you think about what that would do to the rest of the community's retail. We have 12 million square feet of retail. We have, retailers are shrinking their footprint, and we have just about every retailer already. And so to think that we would add another big mall that would probably not be in our best interest. We'd probably end up with a lot of vacancies. So, but I do think that some stores may decide, so, like I said, we have Nordstrom Rack, we have Dick's, whatever they call it, the Second Chance or whatever. So I think some of those outlet stores are going to be here. They're going to fill spaces, but it won't be in a mall per se. It'll be more filling spaces.
As far as the industrial, with the Andrew now being Andrew Corporation, is that going to be like zoned, or as far as where the Andrew Corporation used to be on 153rd?
So the question was about Andrew Corporation. So the old Andrew Corporation, which was probably one of the biggest failures of that we've had as far as letting them go. And I think my predecessor said, "Oh, they don't generate any sales tax, so we'll miss them." But it's not about the sales tax, it's all the jobs and everything else they create. So we lost a Fortune 1000 company. They just don't grow on trees. That would have been a great place for them in the I-80 corridor, but that's history. The Andrews site has been cleaned to a commercial standard. So it has clearance to a commercial standard, not to a residential standard, but it was rezoned residential. Highest best use is probably residential, but it has a significant cleanup that needs to be involved there. We are open to commercial as well. We have had somebody approach us on it, and so it's just a function of, does somebody want to pay for the cleanup costs and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, the village will probably have to be a partner in whatever gets done there through a TIF or something like that, because the cleanup costs are very expensive, and obviously we want to see it cleaned up as well. So, but there is a project on the table. I don't know if the numbers are going to work, but it's exciting if it does. So it would be one of those kind of master planning kinds of things. At the same time, it would clean the area up. So I think it would be a good fit. And but all of these things, I see them all the time, and I can tell you, for everyone I see, maybe 1 out of 10 actually gets done. So I don't, hesitant to talk about all the different things I've seen in all the different properties.
Okay, my question is minor. I live near 179th and Wolf Road, which means I live near a certain amount of commercial property. And I noticed recently that we seem to be accumulating a lot more garbage on the streets and on the ground and things like that. Is there any way to get the property owners to keep this cleaner? Because aesthetically, it's starting to look really bad.
Well, so if you see something like that on a property, for sure go to the 311 and point it out, because we can't be everywhere all the time. But we have property inspectors, and keeping the trash cleaned up is really important. So we send them out all the time, and we'll cite businesses and all of that if that's the case. The other problem that you have right now is this time of year, Metro roads, Cook County roads, the Cook County Maintenance Department's not working during this time of year. Metro's not working during this time of year. So you always get kind of an accumulation over the winter that you see before they start getting their cleanup crews out. So that's always an issue.
Thank you, Mayor, for the meeting. I have a question about, I'm vice president of my townhome association.
Okay.
And as far as rentals, my understanding was the city restricts a certain amount of rentals. We only have 35 units in Fountain Circle. And we have some people who move out and just rent their unit without us even being aware that someone else has moved in. So is there a restriction, or are we as the board responsible? Because you know what I'm saying, is that people move out.
So I'm not an attorney, and I certainly don't know HOA law, but
right.
HOAs can set limitations. I don't know what is constitutional, what's not. From a village perspective, we cannot control whether someone rents their property or not, but what we can do, like we have a crime-free rental housing, which requires you to register with us, so we know that it's a rental, and then also we inspect it every 3 years to make sure it's safe.
So we
So
need to
that
make...
part, so if they're renting without us knowing, that would be a violation of our local ordinances. Because again, they have to register with us so that we know that there's rentals in those areas.
So then it's our responsibility to make sure that these rentals are registered with the city.
Right, they need to register with us, and then there's a fee every 3 years, and it's basically an inspection. Every 3 years, we go in and basically inspect the property, make sure that it's being kept up.
Well, that's our
kept.
concern, is keeping it
Right,
nice.
exactly, and we make sure that it's meeting codes, and they're not, and you don't have problems in those rentals.
Okay, thank you.
So. I'll get her over there in just a second.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So I live near the lake, and we have a huge...
Okay, near the lake.
Oh,
we have a
okay.
lot of ponds and
Over by the water park, yeah?
so you live by Lake
Sedgwick.
Lake Sedgwick, okay.
Lake Sedgwick, yeah. We have a huge coyote problem over there.
Yep.
Nothing can be done about that?
Nope.
Okay.
So yeah, coyotes, unfortunately, wildlife, there's really nothing we can do about it unless there's one being aggressive or something like that, then our animal control will go out. I can tell you, just generally speaking, the way coyotes, especially with all the forest preserves and open space, unfortunately, they become very urbanized, and they're smart. And but coyotes in general, they want to stay away from humans, and they're going to stay away from big animals. Where your smaller animals, definitely keep them on a leash and don't let them run around. because coyotes instinctively don't want to get hurt, because if they get hurt, they know they die. So they stay away from animals that might hurt them and injure them in some way. So they'll stay away from big animals. They're going to stay away from people. So, but if you see one that is not getting away from people, it is, and is engaging with people, then they're probably sick. And then certainly call animal control, and they'll come out. We'll come out and take care of it. But otherwise, there's really not much we can do. He has a question over here.
Mayor, my question is that pertains to the health clubs.
Okay.
Two of them in the village, the
Yep.
one down the street on West, and the other one is Sports Flex.
Uh-huh.
So my question is, why doesn't the one down the street on West give a discount as good as the one in Sports Flex to senior citizens?
So the one on so the Sportsplex was built back in 2003, 2004 for the community. The one in 2016 was basically purchased by the village because they were pressured to purchase it. And frankly, it was for political purposes that it was done prior to me being here, and it's a sucking chest wound as far as cost for the village. We've spent $7 million upgrading it. We've got another $10 million to spend in the next 4 years because they were going to close it. They were going to shut it down, so they didn't spend any money. So we took something without doing any due diligence that was very challenging for us. So the decision of the board, and I agree with the decision, is that we operate the Sportsplex through our, as I said, where we subsidize 52%. So we give people an option for that, but the Orland Health and Fitness, because we're spending capital money that, again, that's not being recovered. We run that operationally to break even. And so we run everything to break even there operationally, and everything that we're doing on the capital expense is still coming out of our dime. So we simply cannot afford to run two things at a big discount.
Well, another thing is, as far as the residents that live here, I think they should get a bigger discount than the non-residents, which is next to nothing.
So again, I don't know what all the fees are over there, but we run that to break even, and we run that at market-based prices. We do not give big discounts. There is a resident versus non-resident fee there. I know that, and it is somewhat substantial. I believe it's like 90 and 126 or something like that is the difference. So there is a difference for the two. And then the Sportsplex obviously is much less expensive. But it also doesn't have a pool. But that's been a board decision. Again, I guess another board could make a different decision. But I can tell you, if they make a different decision, your property taxes from the Village of Orland Park are going up about 20%. So we've.
Another thing too, they give college students a bigger discount than the seniors. Why is that?
I don't know about college student discounts. I know that we do offer some college student discounts at the Sportsplex because they're only here for part of the year. I know that, but I don't know what Orland Health Fit. I can't.
Pointed with that, I think the village should offer seniors that live in this village that pay taxes a discount just as well as the Sportsplex.
So the seniors do have a discounted area. It's called the Sportsplex. They have discounts. Can you get me the recreation book, please? I would appreciate it. And we're giving people a choice. So, and people have that choice. There's a discounted area where you can certainly go to go.
What's happening at Riviera, the country club?
Riviera Country Club?
Yeah, the health club facility there.
It's not our facility, so it was bought by someone, and the healthcare facility is, I don't know what they're going to do with it. I know they've redone the restaurant, they've redone the banquet facility. I don't know what they're doing with the health club facility. My understanding is they're renovating it, but I don't know what they're doing with it. Do you have the recreation book? No, that's not the point. So I know that the individual asking the question left because he, but I was trying to get the information for. So this is the recreation book, okay? So there's 100 pages of programs. I can tell you I don't know all the pricing. I can't possibly know all the pricing. I can tell you there are senior discounts for just about everything that we do here. And if you could pull up the Orland Health and Fitness, I'd appreciate it. But we offer, It's senior discounts all over, and again, we give people a choice of where they go. I personally work out at the Sportsplex. I don't need the pool. I want the lower expenses there, and this applies to even employees in the village. Employees of the village don't get a discount at Orland Health and Fitness. They get one at Sportsplex. So the Health and Fitness Center. So a couple, resident couple, is 130. A senior couple is 120. Individual 74. Senior individual 68. And college students are 55. That's correct. But college students aren't here for 8 months of the year. So that's why college students are down. So and non-resident fees are for an individual are about a little over 10% higher. Family about 20% higher. Seniors about 10% higher for non-residents. So again, the issues, as we said, we do offer discounts for those various things. And can you pull up the Sportsplex in here real quick? I'm just trying to get an answer. Unfortunately, he left because he wasn't getting the answers that he wanted right away, but we're trying to get them for him. So any other questions? Any other questions? Sure.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you for responding to emails that I have sent to you over the last couple of years. I emailed you about a community garden about 2 years ago.
I remember that one.
And you gave a very extensive response. And I also emailed you about some issues with retail and the mall and some other things. And I just appreciate the quick response. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I try to respond to everybody as long as they're not wishing for me or my family to die like they were during COVID. Then those ones I just kind of shuffle to the side. But anyone who gives me, I try to answer, and I try to answer thoroughly. I'm glad you appreciate it. Even if they don't appreciate the answer, I at least try and give people the facts because that's all I can really give them. And back to the Sportsplex. So I think, what was it for a couple? It was for Orland Health and Fitness. 120. So Sportsplex membership, a couple is 60. So remember I said we were subsidizing 52%. So that's what we do at the Sportsplex. That's what we tried to. That's what we do. And then there is a pretty significant senior discount there as well, because again, that's the area that we're trying to subsidize. So we do offer a choice, Sportsplex or Orland Health and Fitness, and people can make those choices of which one they want to go to. What's that? The problem is it's $15 to $20 million to build a pool. So now that we have Orland Health and Fitness, and if anyone remembers when they tried to get rid of Orland Health and Fitness, the uproar about getting rid of it, and oh, by the way, we weren't getting rid of it. It was another place getting rid of it. It is not in my opinion, it is not the village's job to take over businesses that fail. But unfortunately, we did. Well, now it's our thing. Well, now getting rid of that pool would be very challenging for us to do. So we made the decision we're going to get it up to speed. We've spent a lot of money getting it up to speed, and it's cheaper to get it up to speed now than it is to build a new pool. But people who want pool memberships, that's where they need to go, is there. And at this point, we're going to continue to operate that as more of a market-based fitness center. So we're going to use the market-based pricing for that one. And for the Sportsplex is where you're going to get your more discounted pricing for recreation.
I do not have a question. I have a comment.
Sure.
I am very impressed with this whole meeting. I am very impressed with your answers and very lucky to have him as a mayor.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
To those of you who don't use the Sportsplex, my husband and I are members, but what I love is that I can go to the regular club and do water aerobics for $10. You get a discount if you want to join, but a lot of times I'm too lazy to do water aerobics every day. So I think the connection is good. You get the discount at Sportsplex, but you can go and use the main facility at a discount. So $10 to do water aerobics, I think, is kind of wonderful. So they work together. And I haven't found anything cheaper than Sportsplex. you know, especially for our seniors. I haven't found anything cheaper.
So what we try to do is we try to balance, and again, the board has to make these decisions, right? It's money. And the reality is the bulk of the Orland Health and Fitness members are actually not residents. Because it's got physical therapy components, got water therapy and all these other things that are kind of, and we actually lease that part out to Northwestern. So that has, where the Sportsplex has a really high percentage of our residents. Orland Health and Fitness, even when they were looking at getting rid of Orland Health and Fitness, or it was Payless at that point when they were looking at closing it, of the people that were complaining, like 70% of them, 80% of them didn't live in Orland, right? So and this was even before I got here, so they elected to take it. Think it was a mistake, but it's done, right? So that's done, and so we have it. We've turned it into a nice facility. We're doing we're doing what we can with it, but they made a decision when they took it on that we're going to leave this as a market-based product. We're not going to subsidize it like everything else because we simply can't afford to do that. And then what I found out once I got here, because they did that 6 or 7 months before I got here, all of the costs associated with it. The first one was like $3 or $4 million on the pool, and it was like right out of the gate. So there was a lot of surprise expenses, and like I said, it's probably about $15 million, all said and done over a 10-year period to get that facility where it's completely up to speed. So it's really hard for us to then subsidize membership as well, especially when over half of the members are not residents. And from my perspective, I look at it as residents have a choice. You have another place to go. So you're saying we're not giving you an alternative because we're not, allowing you, because we're not giving you a discount at the Orland Health Fitness. We are giving you an alternative. It's called the Sportsplex, and you're just choosing, you just want your alternative for you, and ultimately we have to look at the village as a whole. So we're giving people alternatives, giving them choices. They can decide Orland Health and Fitness. They can decide Sportsplex, whatever works best for them. So, and I think we do a pretty good job of that, like you said.
179th and LaGrange, what's being built there, or is that even Orland right there?
So I think you're talking 183rd and LaGrange?
No,
179th and LaGrange.
179th, oh,
There's
that's
a new-
Loyola Medical Center, it's Tinley Park. Yeah. But so it's another medical center.
I don't know if this is really the forum for it, but on the docket about the village manager situation, can you explain, a lot of the surrounding area have something different than we have. Why would that be better for us to switch from the village manager?
So I can't comment so much on why it would be better, but I can tell you what the different vote, because, I can tell you personally offline, but I can't here. But what I can tell you is what the difference in the vote is. Okay, I can also tell you why I put it on the why I voted to put the referendum on the ballot. So essentially, our current form of government is a council manager form of government by statute, which means it was passed by referendum by the voters. There's about 72 communities in Illinois, 74 maybe, in Illinois that have that form of government out of the 1,400 communities. Okay, everybody else has something different than that. What that does is statutorily, so by the state of Illinois, it takes the powers that are normally given to the mayor and gives them to the village manager. The specific powers that it gives to the village manager gives them the power to appoint attorneys. It gives them the power to hire all the department heads and all officers of the village, okay? It gives them the power to do that without a public approval requirement from the board. Now, of course, if they do something the board doesn't like, the board can always fire them, but at the end of the day, they don't have a public approval requirement from the board once they're hired. The other thing is that the board hires the village manager, and they can hire him to any length contract they want. So an example would be what happened when I took office. When I took office, the board hired someone before I even took office, after I was elected, before I took office. Then they extended his contract beyond my term, okay? So basically, the board can hire who they want to run the village day to day. They have that choice. That's what we currently have. So that's what a yes vote would do. A no vote would go back to what it used to be, which is a village trustee form of government. okay? Which means the way that we vote wouldn't change. I still vote on everything, it's still a majority vote. The difference would be is that those powers I said that were shifted to the village manager no longer would be. So the mayor would appoint the attorney, would appoint the treasurer, would hire all the department heads, okay? And would also be responsible for enforcing all laws. That's the other thing. The village manager is responsible for enforcing all laws. The mayor would be responsible for enforcing all the laws, okay? The mayor would not be able just to appoint them. The mayor has to get approval from the board, majority vote. So so the village manager does not have to go in front of the board and the public. The mayor would have to go in front of the board and the public to hire the police chief, to hire any of those people, and the board would have to approve it. The other thing is the mayor would appoint a village manager, okay? If we decided to hire one, which we have, we would keep a village manager. The board would appoint the village manager, or the mayor would appoint the village manager. The board would approve the village manager. And I cannot appoint a village manager for longer than my term, which I actually think makes perfect sense. So that's the fundamental difference between the two things. I can't tell you how to vote on them. I can tell you that I put it on the agenda. The board unanimously voted to put it on referendum because we think it's appropriate for the people to have that choice. You're welcome.
Can you please elaborate on the community garden? Are we going to have one?
We tried a community garden, and it's been a while since I emailed you, but we tried a community garden over off of by Discovery Park, and what was happening is basically nobody was using it, and we ended up having to maintain it all the time and fix it all the time, and but it was tried for a long time, and it just was not. It ended up being us basically weeding everything all the time, and nobody was really using it. So that's kind of what happened. I think that's pretty much. As I recall, that was pretty much the gist of it, yeah. I know I gave you more detail because staff researched it for me and everything, but that's what I remember. Sure. Good morning.
I hope the answer will be yes. Are you familiar with the CERT CERT program, Community Emergency Response Team? We are under the Orland Park Fire District, and to be perfectly honest, the program has kind of come to a dead in its position status right now, largely, I think, because of the pandemic, and the program has been in place for a long time. It was grant funded a couple of years ago, which is the last time that they provided an initial training class. It's a FEMA program, and many of the surrounding areas have vigorous programs and actually redeveloping programs, especially in response to much of what goes on. It's a free program and it's staffed by volunteers. Usually the training is done by people that are in the services, either being police or fire. And these programs are hugely helpful in the community setting. Where do you get free help other than a program like this? And Orland did have it. It has not been active. There have been a small group of us that trained here initially a number of years ago and have tried to reinvigorate the interest. There's interest, but nothing yet has happened. So I'm just being honest. I have spent some time talking about possibly a realignment for funding purposes to bring it into the police department. I understand that the board is going to be going through a re-election, and there is interest on the part of some of the team, to see this program through. It clearly needs redevelopment because through the years, many people have dropped off the roster for a variety of reasons, but there's such potential for it. I'm also in another program in Will County, and we are active several times a week, training, going to state level training. There's such potential in a village such as ours. We do a huge amount of community service free of charge under the development and under the regulatory body, whatever it might be. And I was hoping from your level that you could possibly look at reintegrating, developing, realigning, whatever it might take. I think we really are missing a huge opportunity here.
Thank you. So I'm not familiar with it because, as you pointed out, it's been a fire district program, and the fire district doesn't fall under the village. Going back to Park District, Parks Department. So some towns have a fire department, like Tinley, so it's underneath their town. We have a fire district, so it's a completely separate taxing body. So I don't really know anything about it. I do know that the Village of Orland Park, we have our own emergency services disaster agency, and it's volunteer, and it's something that we run, ASDA. So I know we do that, and I have not heard anything about an interest in changing that program or doing anything different with that program. We're in the process of strategic planning right now. I'll make sure that the person handling police brings it up. They'll I'm sure, weigh in. Obviously, our focus with police is public safety as well. And emergency service, we have a huge emergency services disaster agency that's volunteer. We also have a pretty substantial plan for any of those things that transpire. But we can certainly, we'll bring it up with them. But I don't know how that program dovetails with our ESDA program at all.
Got a question for you.
Sure.
I know we're not Naperville. We have a lot, that we don't have
Thankfully.
all the stuff we have. Well, compared to what they have to go there to, with the open boxes we have now, and like the open space of the Triangle, and with Sears being open. My question is, we have the village manager since the referendum. We have a village manager. Is there anything that you haven't, that he hasn't done that with you and the board that hasn't done that you guys have put him to, want him to do?
Again, I can't really comment too much on this because there's an active referendum. What I can say is I can repeat what we said when we approved the referendum, is that we've had different village managers. And so we've had a village manager who did not, certainly did not follow my directive in any way, and did things that I don't think people want. I don't think they want me, locked out of buildings and those types of things. Those are things that we know happen. This has nothing to do with our current village manager. Our current village manager does a good job. It has to do exactly with what I talked about, is the choice for the people is really simple. It's, do you want the village manager to have the authority to do all the things I said, or do you want the mayor to have that authority to appoint with approval from the board? So that's, at the end of the day, that's the choice between that residents have.
Okay, the only other thing I have to follow up with that with you is if you have, since you and the board then would hire anybody else that was hired, like the police chief, like anything like somebody like that, with the mayor form of government that we've seen around the area with places that have it, it becomes more of a, not that I'm saying you're going to be that way, but more of a good old buddy system where you can pick up, hire whoever you'd want for a position.
So again, it's an active referendum. So happy to have happy to have some of these discussions offline. But I will say what I can say that goes on, that's around us here. The closest form of government to the one that has the same form of government to us, that's closest to us, is Oak Lawn. Okay, that we currently have. Around us, that has the government we will go to if the vote is different, if we change and we go back. The ones around us that have that are Homer Glen, Tinley Park, Mokina, Frankfort, New Lenox, Palos, Palos Heights is a city. So Lamont. So those are ones that are near us that have the form that we will go to. So there's 74 towns in the state that have our form of government. There's 1,300 and some that do not have our current form of government. So, again, my comments on the referendum were made when I voted on it. I can't comment on it here. You're more than happy to have a conversation outside the village hall, and I'll give you give you all the answers you want, and I can tell you exactly what my perspective is on it. But as far as the purposes here in the Village Hall, I can tell you what your choices are, and that's what I can tell you. That I can't give you anything else. Any other questions?
So I'm a 50-year resident, proud to be probably the youngest person here, saying in 50 years I was here in diapers. Okay, so I've seen this village grow. Thank you for your leadership, by the way. From a public works perspective, when I drive, what is the protocol? And this is probably a question regarding rules or whatever regarding property. Like for when I used to call in a previous administration, I'd be at LaGrange Road in exit I-80, and there'd be garbage on the side of the road, and they'd say, "Well, that's not us. That's the state." Right. And they'd say to me, "You call the state, me." Is anybody in the village, do they have the responsibility of calling a state for a state issue for state property, or is that a resident concern?
So I always recommend that people call the state or the county or whoever's responsible for the road, because believe it or not, oftentimes the residents complaining in their ears have a lot more impact than us. But if we see things along the state highway or the county or whatever, we will, our public works people know their people, their maintenance people. We'll call them. We'll try and pressure them. We'll do what we can. But it helps to hit them on all sides fundamentally. But so if it's a state road, it's their responsibility to clean it, and we try to. And if we see a problem, we try and let them know. I mean, I'll give you a good example. So we'll go back to I think it was like 2018, snow. It was after LaGrange Road, it was after LaGrange Road was finished, and so the state plows. They basically run one plow, I think it's up to 159th, and it comes from the south, and they run another plow that comes from the north, and it goes to 159th. Well, from 159th south wasn't done. And they were saying they'd been there, and I'm like, I was just on that road, it had 5 inches of snow. Don't tell me you've been there. And this was, interestingly, when I was locked out of public works buildings by at that, I had more access as a contractor than I did as the mayor. It was absurd. And I basically got the phone number and picked up the phone and called and said, we need to get this done and get it done, okay? So not our responsibility. In fact, if we put a blade on it and something goes wrong with the road, then they're gonna be suing us to fix the road. So there's a liability issue. So, but we did what we could to get them out sooner to get the road cleared off. So, and what that really boiled down to in that particular case was they did not realize that we were up to 6 lanes, and so they didn't have enough equipment to handle what was there. So, but it's a challenge with with the county roads, the state roads. It can be a challenge as far as who to deal with and what we can actually do, because some stuff we just can't do because of the liability we'd face with it. So, but we do try to get on them. If you call us, we'll probably say call them. We'll probably call them too. So that's what our folks usually do. The triangle, the 143rd and LaGrange. Yeah, so long history on that project. So if you go back, probably some of you know, some of you don't know, but if you go back to like 2000, that was a fully rented location. You had Davidson Concrete over there, you had BD Lumber over there, you had Ace Hardware over there, you had all these stores over there. We spent a lot of village money buying out those companies, forcing them out that we were going to have this walkable downtown. You flash forward to 2012 or 2013, we had an apartment building built, 295 units, that we put $64 million into, and the developer put in $1 million. So now, one of the first things I did was because we had a partnership with them, believe it or not, we were owners of an apartment building. We sold out of that, so we're done. That's gone, okay? Not ours. Also, the University of Chicago was put in at the corner. Now, obviously, none of that stuff is walkable, okay? The other problem is, for people who understand how a TIF works, a tax incentive financing district work, it levels the taxes. Taxing bodies get those for a period of time, in this case 23 years, and any additional taxes you get from it go into fixing the infrastructure. Our overall in that project is we're $28 million in the hole. So that's how much we've lost on this, okay? The problem is we never had a plan. We're looking at re-tiffing it now, but when we do it, we'll do it in conjunction with a plan so that we get as much increment as we can out of this and not have empty space. We basically used the money from the TIF, we used it to buy out businesses. So University of Chicago, good addition to Orland Park. Is it a good addition there? It doesn't matter, it's there now. One of the problems we have there is at the time, they were looking at two other locations in Orland Park, and the Village of Orland Park undercut them to get them there. And the problem is they're a non-for-profit. And in a TIF, you want to get property tax. And you want to get increment over the property tax that they currently pay. Well, they pay no property tax. So you're getting no increment. So the village got a land lease of $750,000, which if we talk to people, are like, oh, the village got a great deal. Well, okay, so I'll do the math for you. That property is probably about 1.6 million in taxes is what it would be. We're getting 750, not 1.6 million. After 25 years, we get nothing, they own it, okay? The village gets all 750. Of the 1.6 million, the village is only getting 100 grand. So yeah, the village is going to get $600 extra $1,000 for 15 or 20 years after the TIF ends. The problem is the school districts, the fire district, and everybody else gets screwed because they get zero. So the village stuck it to everybody else when they did that. So it's a bad deal. Now I will tell you that the new plan there, University of Chicago is a big part of it. Here's why. University of Chicago has, that's the other problem with the deal they made, they have complete right of refusal for all medical and complete right of approval of any project that goes there. So we basically turned over our control over to the University of Chicago. University of Chicago wants to expand. So the policy of the board, what we have told the developer who is working on this, is that we will not do a land lease, we will not sell the property to University of Chicago. They need to be a renter, because if they're a renter, then the building is fully taxed. So that's the philosophy we've taken. So they may expand, but everything they do at this point forward will be taxable. So that's how we're handling that problem, because we have the conundrum of you got a non-for-profit, wants to expand, but it's a TIF, so we need to get something. So and the University of Chicago knows this, and our understanding is they're interested. So we're working on that. I'm hoping by the summer, we're going to have a plan that works. I can tell you what's making it really challenging to make that project work is interest rates. Interest rates being double what they were is making it very challenging to make the numbers work there. So it's making it a challenge. It's never going to be what we were sold in 2000. It just won't. There's not enough space. You think about that. Walkable downtown, it's like less than a half a block long. There's not, but we can make it something, and we've said repeatedly, it's got to be something that the people of the village can benefit from, not just the residents in that corner. So that's been, pretty clearly communicated. And I think what they're planning on doing, the plans that we've seen, that they are planning on doing that. It really, right now, the challenge is can they get the numbers, how much, the increment that's generated that can offset the structural improvements, can it generate enough to make the numbers work so they can make a profit? Because obviously they're in it to make a profit. So that's the real conundrum there, and that's been the problem for a long time. Unfortunately, the existing TIF only has like 4 years left, so there's nothing you can do with the existing TIF to make this work for you. Any other questions? No, no questions about Centennial Park West, no questions about Schuessler Park? So we have two big projects coming up and we knew that we're planning on doing these projects. We knew that we needed to fund these projects. So we actually approved these projects and bonded for these projects last year before these interest rates went up. So we probably saved ourselves, a lot. We saved ourselves a lot of money, millions of dollars by doing that. So Schuessler Park is off of 88th Avenue behind Riviera. And it's got a huge flooding problem. It's very relatively unusable. Half the project is fixing the flooding problem, so it's expanding the expanding the pond, redoing the area. Also, we're adding 2 fields, 2 turf fields, because underneath turf, the nice thing about artificial turf is underneath it, you can actually store water. And so we're doing that there. And the nice thing about those 2 turf fields is actually being designed for our football programs, which we've had a football program for 50 years. It's never had an area that was dedicated to it. We shoved them on baseball fields, we shoved them here, and we got all these fields everywhere. So we're dedicating that to them for practice. But then all the rest of the year, it'll be able to use for soccer, lacrosse, and other things. And because it's turf, it's not going to get torn up by the cleats. It's not going to, when it rains, it's not going to get torn up. It can still be used. So very beneficial. And it's a small area. It actually helps us solve the sewer problem, the water problem. So it's a good place for us to test, if a turf field makes sense, if it ever does anywhere else. So that's one. The Centennial Park West, which is over by where I live, was built as an outdoor concert venue. It was approved in 2003 as such, including a band shell, but it was never built. So we're building it. So we've done concerts out there now. We've done things out there now. Probably be too hard to get the pictures up of what it's going to look like, wouldn't it? Yeah, but it's on the website. But basically, it's going to have a permanent band shell, which will help us attract some better talent, and it's better for the performers and that kind of thing. And we won't have to rent a stage all the time. We're pushing the hill back much further, so there's more seating available. We're expanding the walkways around the side so that the Taste of Orland tents can go around the side. And right now, so believe it or not, they built this for outdoor concerts, but they never ran electricity. So we're running everything off generators. So there'll be electricity run out there, so all of the tents, instead of running off generators, they're all going to, so this year, that'll be done, Soul Schuster Park. Next year, the Taste of Orland, Market on the Park, and all the concerts will move to that venue. And it's being built specifically, Taste of Orland's our biggest attended event, so it's being built specifically to handle that. And if you think about that, you have the west parking and the east parking of that Metro lot. We have over 3,000 spaces there. It's the most parking we have in the village. It's the perfect place for a venue of that. And it was actually planned in '03. I mean, it's nothing new. I was at a hearing this week, residents complaining who moved in 2022 and 2020. I moved in there in 2004 or 2005. I bought in 2004, moved in 2005. And I can tell you that's been planned since then, so it's not a surprise, right? And it's going to be great for the village. Any other? Oh, Trustee Katsinas is here. There was a question about the CERT program. You probably know something about it with the fire district. I don't know if you heard everything she said. Okay, perfect. I didn't see you over there in the corner. So that's the person to talk to about that, the CERT program, is Cindy.
As we slowly move to EV, is Orland going to be putting in any chargers?
So we have chargers over in our parking deck, and we obviously allow the various businesses to do it. The mall's done it, the Crossings has done it. So I think it's, you ask me personally, it's very debatable how much EV we're actually going to have. It's going to be part of it because Tesla's a cool car. But at the end of the day, I think there's 7 million EVs being built and there's a year, and there's 250 million cars on the road. So if you talk to the auto dealers around here, most of them will tell you they think hydrogen is more the future than EV. So we'll have to see how that shakes out over time. But we have some in our parking garage. I don't think we have any intention of building them in our parking lots. They're very expensive to build. And people stay in the parking lots for such a short time. The reason they're in the parking garage is because people might park there longer. And then, again, the Crossings has done it. In some of the various areas are doing it to encourage customers to come there. So, and I know like the Tesla supercharging takes like 30 minutes, and the Crossings has that, so people will go there and shop for the 30 minutes and do the supercharging, especially those that are grandfathered in to get the free charging. So, on the what? We talked about that a little earlier. Yeah, so we talked about it. It's contaminated, but it's been cleaned to a commercial standard, but it's zoned residential. It's zoned R3. We have seen a potential project which was residential. If they do come forth with it, I actually, the project, it's the furthest, the only thing I've seen and it actually might make sense if they can make the numbers work. The village will likely have to be a partner in a TIF. We'll probably have to create a TIF there because of the cleanup. Because to clean it up to a residential standard is about $9 million, so they're probably going to need help with that cleanup. The nice thing about the TIF, it doesn't really impact anybody, because what happens is, and I touched on this earlier, but basically, when we create the TIF, the taxes get set at their current level. All the taxing bodies get whatever they're being taxed currently for the whole life of the TIF. Any additional property taxes paid from that TIF can be used in that project. They have certain ways they have to be used. Infrastructure, cleanup would be one of those things. So they have to be used for public improvements. And so, but that's a way where they can, if they build, say a bunch of townhomes and things like that, all that property tax can go in to offset all of that cleanup cost. And so that's probably how the village will have to, and it's in our interest to do that because we don't want it to be a vacant property and we don't want it to be a contaminated property, right? So one of the things I told the owners is that, hey, if you want to do commercial there, we're open to that, because previously they were told they weren't, so they just walked away because it's only clean to that standard. But we do have a proposed project. But like I said before, out of every 10 projects I see, maybe one of them actually happens. That's the old Andrew Corporation, so it's across from the Metro 153rd Street parking lot, the big 70 acres there next to the country club. So, and highest best use is probably residential because it's surrounded by residential. But, we just have to see everybody wants things developed, but at the end of the day, developers have to make money. And it's tough. It's Illinois. It's, interest rates are up, so it's making it a lot more challenging. And you're not seeing a lot, obviously, Orland Park's population grew a little bit, while the rest of the state's declining. So it makes it a challenge. Any other questions? I see a newcomer here. Any questions? Well, I want to thank you all for coming. For anyone who wants a quick tour of the executive conference room, happy to give you one. Welcome again to the new boardroom, which I think we did. Staff did an outstanding job. And as you look around, you'll see all these cameras everywhere. So you see these 5 cameras are for Nabia to be able to show the board meetings much more easily. And then these smaller cameras underneath, these are security cameras, so our police can monitor what's happening here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Please grab some food on the way out, because it's just going to get tossed if you don't.